generations. On behalf of my generation, I'm sorry.
We're sorry for depleting and destroying the natural resources you deserve.
Like clean water, breathable air, and oceans, glaciers, animals, and forests for you all to enjoy. For you to understand what we're going to be talking about today, I think it's really important that you understand what photosynthesis is and how it occurs. Photosynthesis is the process in which plants take in carbon dioxide, energy, and water and converts it to glucose that it can use and that supports the whole food chain in which we use to live. The process of photosynthesis starts out by sunlight entering through the stomata of the plant. Chlorophyll and the thylakoids capture light energy and put them into photostems. Acceptors calm the electrons so that they're able to go through the H2O splits, leaving oxygen as the waste product. Hydrogen fuels the electron transport chain. Electrons are passed from the chlorophyll to NADPH+, and this helps make the ATP. CO2 molecules start the Calvin cycle, and rubisco makes CO2 into sugar. G3P joins the fun, and after the Calvin cycle goes around 6 times, glucose is finally made.
You'd also need to know about cellular respiration. Respiration is another word for breathing. It starts with glycolysis, where glucose from plant sugars for photosynthesis are broken into 2 pyruvic acids. After glycolysis, the Krebs cycle happens. That releases CO2 as a waste product, and it produces high-energy electrons passed through the electron transport chain. Combined, the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain produces 36 ATP, and glycolysis produces 2 ATP molecules. The formula for cellular respiration is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 yields 6H2O plus 6 CO2 plus ATP. That's glucose plus oxygen yields water, carbon dioxide, and energy.
Decomposition is really important when talking about the environment and why it's in a very fast decline. Decomposition is when animals, plants, and other organisms die and are broken down with decomposers like mushrooms and worms.
The dead organism's nutrients are deposited into the soil by the decomposers, and their carbon goes into the ground. After a very long time, this underground carbon turns into fossil fuels used by humans. Another problem is deforestation. Did you know that 30% of the planet is covered in forests? And 80% of animals on Earth depend on the forest for their homes. Between 20 and 30% of the world's oxygen is produced by the Amazon rainforest alone. Deforestation is the cutting down or removing of trees in a forested area. It can cause soil erosion, decreasing biodiversity, and destroying habitats. Wildfires are an uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation occurring in rural areas. There has been an estimated 8.7 million acres burned by wildfires in the U.S. The leading causes of human and forest deforestation is agricultural expansion, livestock ranching, logging, infrastructure expansion, and overpopulation. Around 40% of forests are used to manufacture paper products. China, the US, Japan, and Germany and Korea are the top 5 countries in the world that use the most paper products. China is number 1 at 101.1 million tons of paper per year. When trees are cut down, they release tons and tons of carbon because they have a thing called carbon storage, where they hold carbon in their bonds and keep it there until they're cut down and burned. This leads to greenhouse gases being released into the atmosphere, which increases Earth's temperature. If you're wondering how you can help, some possible alternatives are to be more technological, where you can do everything online. You can conserve paper products in general. You can plant trees. Try to stop industrialization.
Next, we need to talk about oceans, because oceans cover up 2/3 of our Earth. Before this year started, the pH was calculated at 8.2, and now it's calculated at 8.1, which means the ocean became 10 times more acidic than it was before. The oceans cover up 26% of the carbon dioxide in the air, and that's a lot of carbon dioxide since we burn so much, and so much carbon dioxide is released. So since the ocean absorbs so much of this carbon dioxide, they're called carbon sinks, which can be a good or a bad thing because we need to store some carbon, but when so much of it is bleaching our coral and taking off the shells of our favorite marine life, it's a problem. So what is ocean acidification? It's the ongoing decrease of the ocean's pH levels, leading to the water becoming more acidic and unsafe for organisms and killing them. And this is a problem because it breaks down calcium carbonate in shellfish and hermit crabs and clams, and they're a large part of habitats in the food chain. And without those small animals, the whole ocean food chain is all into pieces. Ocean acidification breaks down calcium bicarbonate in corals and deep sea sediments, so that kills all the corals and bleaches them and breaks down the sediments, so they can't absorb and recycle the carbon in the water. I've talked a lot about the effects of ocean acidification, but we haven't talked about the causes. One of the really big ones is human dumping. We're dumping things in our rivers and lakes and streams that shouldn't be there, and they're all leading to the ocean. Also, just the industrial waste release. We're releasing harmful chemicals off of power plants, and we're burning greenhouse gases that's releasing carbon dioxide into the air when it's way too much. Also, we need to talk about air pollution. We burn so many things and we aren't really aware of it. And it's going on for so long since the Industrial Revolution that it's just getting worse and worse. It's farm pollution. 40.8% of the U.S. is covered in farmland. That's nearly almost half. And pesticides and toxic chemicals that we do to enhance our food or help the grass and help what's growing is being released and leaking into water somehow or near the farm. Also, we need to talk about plastics. Around 400 million tons of plastic is produced each year. 8 million tons per year of plastic ends up getting into the ocean. And this is really harmful to our marine life because many animals mistake it for other animals and food, and it will end up in their digestive system and it never breaks down, or it takes a really long time. So they'll trick themselves to think that they're full, but really it's just plastic that provides zero nutrients, and all they're doing is die. And our open oceans, the Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic oceans, have the most human impact because they're all around us near the coast, and all of our plastic and all of our crap is ending up in the oceans.
The greenhouse effect allows Earth's atmosphere to trap and return solar energy through gases, allowing us to live. In fact, without these gases, Earth would freeze. This heat comes from solar energy, radiation, in the form of light and heat from the sun. The greenhouse effect can be beneficial to humans, but it can also cause the carbon cycle to come out of balance. There are 4 major gases that absorb and re-radiate solar radiation. They are called carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and chlorofluorocarbons. However, human actions have caused greenhouse gases, or atmospheric CO2, to increase 30% due to overuse of fossil fuels since the 1800s, trapping heat and increasing Earth's temperature, leading to global warming.
Now it's time to talk about pollution. And we always hear about pollution and how it's really damaging our Earth, but do we really understand how? So first, let's talk about a garbage patch. Garbage patches are large areas of the ocean where litter, fishing gear, and other debris collects in a big cluster. And one of the biggest ones that you'll always hear about is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, located in the North Pacific Ocean. This consists of bottles, plastic bags, fishing gear, and microplastics, and we already know what it's doing to our marine life. How do these form? It's by rotating ocean currents called gears, and the gears pull in trash to their center, forming garbage patches. And once they're there, they really don't move. Landfills are kind of like garbage patches, but they're on land, and we are very aware of them. They're structured filled with trash to keep it away from people. And while they can be a good thing and they're not really harming our Earth, they're kind of impacting in a bigger way than we think. The most common materials found in U.S. landfills are cigarette butts, batteries, tires, scrap metal, and many more just garbage and food waste that we have every day. And some of it decomposes, which is a really good thing for the Earth, but battery acid in computers is rarely not good for our environment. So, a lot of things that are not allowed in landfills but still end up there are motor oil, tires, liquid waste, and untreated medical waste, which all really damages our earth and that we're aware of, but still ends up there anyway. So, landfill waste doesn't really go anywhere. It just sits there because they mostly consist of non-biodegradable materials. And it sits there for a very long time or washes away into water areas like streams and lakes and rivers. Plastics are made from natural materials like cellulose, coal, natural gas, and crude oil through polymerization, and plastic revolutionized medicine, space travel, and transportation, especially after World War II, and since then it's taken a big leap. 300 million tons of plastics are produced each year, and 8 million tons of that escapes into the ocean. It can take around 400 years for some plastics to break down that are in our landfills, and for them just sitting there for 400 years, that cannot be good for our earth. The plastics seem to find its way to make its way around the world, and they go from land to water sources like rivers that leak into the oceans, and the oceans carry and take them all around the world. These garbage patches and landfills and plastics have a very big impact on biotic and abiotic factors in the marine ecosystems. They kill many animals by the animals consuming them, taking over their habitats, choking them because the trash always ends up in marine ecosystems. So this all sounds very bad, but it's something we can help. So some possible solutions are improving management systems and recycling, better product manufacturing and design, using the 3 R's that we learned in elementary school: reducing, reusing, and recycling these plastics. And a very modern technology that hasn't really been advanced yet, but we already have one in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, is big machines used to collect the plastics in the ocean. These are very expensive, but very necessary when trying to clean up our oceans that really we need to live. Our whole life depends on our oceans since it covers up almost 2/3 of the earth.
Another factor of global warming and climate change is agriculture and manufacturing. 40.8% of the United States is farmland, and agriculture makes up 1% of the economy. Soybean farmers, corn farmers, berries, and Christmas trees are the most profitable types of farming. And you might be wondering, is agriculture good for the environment? Well, it can sometimes be good because growing plants is good for carbon reduction, but clearing land for farmland can be bad for the environment. Right now, the agriculture industry accounts for 1/5 of greenhouse gas emissions. Some benefits of agriculture industry is economic growth and you get your products faster.
Now you might be wondering, why do I care? Well, there's still so much the world has to offer, but if we keep destroying and demolishing our environment the way we aren't going to last very long. So take a look at how you live your life and see what changes you can make to better the earth. Because our future generations deserve a life with clean air and water, a life with natural and beautiful plants and animals, a life they want to live.
No, I don't understand it either, and I don't think I can. Fuzzy brain, call it what you want. I felt so distant lately.